It was Halloween night, and Mia decided to stay home, handing out candy to trick-or-treaters. Her neighborhood was alive with laughter and costumed kids. At 11:30 p.m., the last of the children had gone, and Mia began cleaning up. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Confused, she hesitated but eventually opened the door. A man stood there, wearing an old, cracked porcelain mask. He was tall and eerily still, holding an empty trick-or-treat bag. "No more candy, sorry," Mia said nervously. The man didn't move. Then he slowly tilted his head. "Not candy," he whispered, his voice distorted and raspy. A chill ran down her spine. She slammed the door shut and locked it. Moments later, a faint tapping came from the window. She turned to see the masked figure staring at her, now holding a knife. Panicking, Mia grabbed her phone, but there was no signal. The power flickered, and the room plunged into darkness. She stumbled toward the kitchen to grab a weapon, her heartbeat deafening in her ears. When the lights flickered back on, the mask was lying on the counter, cracked in two. Beneath it was a photograph of Mia, taken from inside her house. And behind her, in the faint reflection of the window, she saw him. On Halloween night, a group of friends decided to explore the old manor on the edge of town. The house had been abandoned for decades, shrouded in mystery and fear. Rumors claimed it was cursed, but they laughed it off as just another ghost story. Armed with flashlights and bravado, the 5 friends entered the house. The air inside was cold and heavy, the wooden floors creaking beneath their feet. Dust and cobwebs coated every surface, and the scent of mildew lingered in the air. They reached the grand staircase when the first whisper came. "Leave! Did you hear that?" Sarah asked, clutching her boyfriend Mark's arm. The others shrugged, chalking it up to the wind. They continued up the stairs. The whispers grew louder, coming from all directions. "Turn back. Not safe." In one of the upstairs rooms, they found an old mirror. Its surface was tarnished, but as they approached, something strange happened. Their reflections didn't mimic their movements. Instead, the reflections stared back at them, grinning eerily. "Let's get out of here," Alex muttered, backing away. Before anyone could respond, the door slammed shut behind them. The whispers turned into laughter, sinister and mocking. The mirror's glass began to crack, spiderwebbing outward until it shattered. From the shards crawled shadowy figures, their eyes glowing red. One by one, the friends screamed as the shadows engulfed them, their bodies disappearing into the darkness. The next morning, the manor stood as it always had, silent and still. But now, if you dared to look into the mirror left in its upstairs room, you'd see 5 terrified faces staring back, their mouths open in soundless screams. Every Halloween, the townsfolk of Raven Shade warned their children to stay away from the Hollow Woods. It was said that once you entered, the forest had a way of keeping you. But Emma, a skeptic and thrill-seeker, laughed at the stories. On Halloween night, armed with a flashlight and her curiosity, she ventured into the woods. The air was thick and unnaturally cold. The leaves beneath her feet crunched loudly, as if the forest was listening. About 10 minutes in, Emma found an old, moss-covered path leading deeper into the woods. She followed it, her flashlight flickering. The deeper she went, the quieter it became. No wind. No animals. Just silence. She stumbled upon a clearing with a strange stone circle in the middle. At the center of the circle was a single, withered tree with carvings on its bark. They looked like faces, each twisted in agony. A whisper floated on the air. "Run!" Emma froze. She spun around, but no one was there. The whisper came again, louder this time. "Run now!" Her flashlight died, plunging her into darkness. A sound behind her made her whirl around, a low, guttural growl. She could feel something watching her, its presence heavy and suffocating. Panicked, she ran. The forest twisted around her, the path disappearing. She screamed as the growls closed in. Suddenly, she tripped and fell. When she looked up, the tree with the carved faces was in front of her again. The faces were moving now, their mouths opening and closing in silent screams. One of the faces looked eerily like hers. The next morning, Emma's flashlight was found near the edge of the woods. But Emma was never seen again. Legend says a new face appeared on the tree that Halloween night, frozen in terror. In a quiet village, every Halloween, people place jack-o'-lanterns on their doorsteps to keep the grinning man away. Legend said he walked the streets, seeking anyone without a lantern to take with him into the night. Martha didn't believe in the story. "It's just an old wives' tale." She scoffed as her neighbors carefully carved their pumpkins. She left her porch bare and went to bed early, ignoring the eerie silence that settled over the village as midnight approached. At 12:01 a.m., she awoke to the sound of faint knocking. "Probably kids playing a prank," she muttered, pulling her blanket tighter. But the knocking grew louder and more insistent. Reluctantly, she got up and peeked through the peephole. No one was there. Yet, when she opened the door, she found a single, unlit jack-o'-lantern on her porch. Its grin was wide and jagged, almost alive. She kicked it aside, but as it rolled down her steps, she heard laughter, low, guttural, and echoing. She slammed the door shut and locked it, her heart racing. Minutes later, the laughter returned, louder now. It was coming from inside the house. Panicking, Martha grabbed a knife from the kitchen. She turned, and there he stood, a tall figure with hollow eyes and a mouth stretched into an impossibly wide grin. His face looked as though it had been carved, his flesh glowing faintly like the inside of a pumpkin. "Forgot your lantern," he whispered, his voice a chilling hiss. The next morning, her house was empty, her door ajar. On her porch sat a new jack-o'-lantern, its grin even wider than the last. And in its flickering light, some swore they could see Martha's terrified face frozen in its glow.